I mean, it's amazing when you're working, let's just say you're working 40 hours a week. I was working probably a little bit more than that. I think most people that end up getting a VA really wish they would have done it sooner. It's amazing what happens when you're working, let's just say 50 hours a week. You bring in the VA, you're now working 25.
Dave, welcome to the show today.
I'm glad to be here, Michael.
Well, I don't know why it's taken us for this long to get on the show here. We've hung out before, and you have a variety of really interesting real estate businesses, but then you have this non-related virtual assistant business, which apparently is not related, but it very much is, and that's the topic of the conversation today. So, with that, give us a little more background about what you're doing with real estate investing and virtual assistants, and a little bit about your background.
Right. So this business was founded purely by accident. So I was doing a lot of number crunching for clients to buy short-term rentals in the Smoky Mountains because I had successfully replaced my engineering income with cabins in the Smoky Mountains. And people asked for my help. And I'm doing all this math. And I'm also a firm believer in business coaches. And the business coach at the time said, "Why are you doing all that math?" And I go, "Well, just because somebody needs to do it." And he said, "Is it rocket science?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Well, why wouldn't you get somebody else to do 4 hours a day of that stuff?" And I said, "That sounds like a really good idea." So I ended up having a friend actually on Facebook say, "I have two absolute rock star VAs. My business model's changing. I'd like to see one land on their feet. Does anybody need one?" And she was so amazing at not only doing the math, but organizing my email and helping me with my scheduling. And for example, one of the reasons I really think an experienced person is super important is she said, "What do you need help with?" I said, "I need help with my email." She said, "What do you need?" I said, "I need these three things." And she said, she's very gentle with me. She goes, "Well, we could do those three things, or we could do these other five things. But if you want to do those three things, that's fine." And I go, "No, you're right. You've been doing this 10 years. You know exactly what you're doing." So I was like, wow. So that's where the difference of I think I need this versus you bring in the experienced person that kind of takes you to the next level and is willing to give you feedback when you're asking.
You're almost like your own ideal avatar, right? Because you are kind of the resistant business owner who thinks they can do or needs to do everything yourself. And you don't even know what you need. And so you have this experienced VA kind of telling you, well, she's asking a bunch of questions. Before you know it, you're like, my gosh, I actually need this person. And so talk to us a little bit about why a real estate investor, or really anyone, should have a VA. Like, give us some examples of what they can do, what their capabilities are, and why we should try to delegate some of these things.
Anything you can do on your computer, and I will give all of your listeners a tip that could be life-changing if they act on it. Ahem. Get a subscription to Loom, and that is basically it records what's on your screen and your face pops up in the corner. And as you're doing everything for the next month, record a video of everything that you do repetitively. This is where I find the water bill. This is where I find the electric bill. This is where I find the natural gas bill. This is how I log into QuickBooks and put it in. Once you have that down, anybody can do that by watching the video. And all of a sudden, your life gets simpler and you get a lot of time back. And that is the biggest premise of anything you can do that's on the computer, your VAs can do. The same applies for analyzing properties. Basically, I built out a spreadsheet. I had some formulas I put in, happened to be a Google sheet, and then they put in numbers, and those made ratios, and then those ratios turned green if they were amazing, and 95% turned red, but the 5% that turned green, that's how I was picking the best properties when it was pretty amazing to buy properties in the Smoky Mountains, and it was very easy to make money.
Okay, well, that's pretty cool. So maybe talk about some other things because I think maybe to you and my first exposure to VAs was similarly mind blowing of what these people can do. I think maybe there's a myth or maybe even a perceived reality that these people are not very they're not very helpful and at the end of the day it's just better off if I do it myself. And so talk a little bit more about what VAs can do, like what level of competency do they have? How much instruction do they need? To what degree can they think on their own? Do they have to be told everything what to do? Talk a little bit about their capabilities and competencies.
No, that's a really good lead in. So let me just describe the background of Jess, who basically runs the Rockstar VA business behind the scenes. So she started out working for a real estate agent firm. And basically, she did listings for a year, then she did cold calling for a year, then she did transaction coordination for a year, then she did social media for a year. And then after she'd rotated through all the jobs, they said, we just want you to be in charge and manage this team, check all these people's work. And if any one of them is ever sick or on vacation, we want you to fill in. And she said, absolutely. So not only is she doing all these various tasks, but she's filling in for the people and managing the quality of their work. So, for example, I still to this day analyze every property that becomes available in the Smoky Mountains, which is Gatlinburg, Pigeon Forge, Sevierville, and Tennessee. And the market slowed down for a while. There weren't as many listings, and I had somebody working on that for 2 hours a day. Jess is like, she probably only needs 40, 45 minutes a day tops. I suggest we take the extra hour and 15 minutes and move it over to this other task of interviewing VAs for the company. So all the social media posts that are getting made for our company are getting done by VAs. Like I said, the management is, the bookkeeping is getting done, is all virtual assistants. But I think where it really comes in for a business owner, and especially somebody that's going to be growing, is you get that manager person in first. That's your one point of contact. And you say, how many other people do I need to hire? And they're kind of running the team. There's been a lot of times where a problem crops up and Jess will just take care of it. And I love that, right? So I'm like, I don't need the phone call, and she knows that I trust her. And 85% of the time she solves it exactly the way I would solve it. And if it's a little bit different, I say I might have done this differently. But I mean, these are people that are college educated. You can get MBAs if you want super business background. Um, and the key point, though, is if you have somebody with the experience that some of the people have, which is harder to find, and you got to pay more for it. Those are the people that are really going to help you grow your business so much faster. So the extra couple dollars an hour you're spending is some of the best money you can spend when you're trying to go to that next level and not have to train the VA to do every single task. If you want the cheapest VA and you're like, 22, 23, 24, 25, and you got way more time than money, that's an excellent plan. That would be a good use of time because you're currently not making as much money and have your investments dialed in. Once you get to remotely established level, or just you don't have a tolerance for super patience, then that's the time that you go with the really experienced person. And that's what the Rockstar VAs provides.
Are we talking about U.S. based? Where are these based? Are they Latin America? Where are they typically?
Most of the people we hire, because we have a 5-year minimum experience requirement, is out of the Philippines.
Okay.
And the main reason for that is because the Philippines has had VAs now for 15, 20 years. So
Yeah.
it's easier to find people with 5 years experience. We actually have one person based out of India and one person based out of Jamaica as well. And we're always willing to go into other markets if we can find that level of experience and competence that we demand for our clients.
So one of the concerns of these offshore VAs is, in my mind, two objections. One is working hours, right, and their level of English, ability to write and to speak. What are you seeing there? How are you overcoming those? Are those really actual challenges, or how are you addressing them?
No, and that is the number one question I get from clients is, I need somebody with good English. And it's like, okay, sign up for a Rockstar Your Business consultation, and you will get to talk to several VAs if you'd like, at least one for sure. And you can check their English. And quite honestly, Norman that works for me, his English is better than my English. I have a little bit of accent. He has zero accent. Jess, again, super easy to understand. There's if you really got picky, there's a minor accent, but nothing that you would even notice unless you're really listening for. So bottom line is, if you need that, we absolutely put that in the job description, and we write individualized job description for each client to make sure that it matches exactly what they're looking for. but the English and the both written and verbal is stellar.
But aren't you like going against their normal, like, I don't know, aren't you kind of lowering their lifestyle or the way that they live by making them work overnights? Like no one wants to work a graveyard shift out here. Are they perfectly fine with just working those late hours to offset kind of what we do? Or does that hurt your retention?
Does not hurt the retention, and here's the reason. Being a virtual assistant in the Philippines is a very prestigious job because it normally means you're making more than the person that's actually showing up in a workplace environment. One of the people that asked us for a job had been a bookkeeper for 12 or 14 years at a place, and is like, I would rather jump to you. One, we're going to pay more. Two, we're going to have them not commute, and the traffic can be pretty horrendous. So because of the prestigiousness of the job and the pay that goes with it, when my first interaction with Jess was the email story that I told you. And then the other part was, I said, is it, what about working? Isn't it the middle of the night? And she said, my goal is to be the most effective for you. I'm planning on working 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, unless you think by shifting my hours, I can be more effective. And that's the virtual assistants want to work for you. They want to earn a little bit more money. It makes their lifestyle way better.
That's really interesting. Now, how do I hire one of these things? Now, we're going to talk about maybe what some of the services you provide, but I was like, I'm going to do it yourself. I'm going to do it myself, Dave, because I can. So how do I connect with these? What's some hiring best practices?
So basically, it's absolutely possible to hire somebody yourself. The big website that most people go to and we use to post some of the jobs is onlinejobs.ph. There are other Facebook groups that you have to know the language that's spoken in the Philippines to post in there, and we pull a lot of experienced VAs from there, and we get a lot of referrals of this person's top notch. But here's the issue that I ran into, because I had actually started a search before I found Jess in that Facebook post, and I had posted an ad on onlinejobs.ph, and what happened was 40 people applied. Now, the problem is, once you start to go for experienced people and pay them really well, on average, we get over 140 people to apply for every job description we have. So then you're tasked with, how do you get through those 140 people? That's the biggest challenge. So you'll have amazing people in that pile, but you're going to have to be able to figure that out. So there's plenty of YouTube videos. John Jonas, he has an email that he sends out. There are all the tools to get through all that. And it's just a matter of if that's how you want to spend your time and if that's a good use of your time. But you can absolutely do it. And for the younger people, just go ahead and do it. Learn it. Why not?
What are some of the hacks to kind of get through those 140 people and narrow them down a little bit?
One of the things that you do is, in the job description, you can put like, in the middle of the third paragraph, you have one sentence that says, when responding, please put cherry in the title or something, right? in the title of the email on the way back, right? Did they read it thoroughly? Maybe they did. Maybe they didn't. If cherry isn't in there, boom, out. And it's like, yeah, I mean, there's just certain things that you ask that a lot of people, well, not a lot, but a decent amount of people will self-weed, but especially at the lower levels. But once you get to the higher levels, it gets more challenging.
Yeah, so for sure. So you can use that to narrow it down, and obviously you do interviews via Zoom like you normally would. I like that because it narrows the field of people who are more detail oriented, follow instructions, versus some that are not. So let's say you bring someone on. How do you then work with them? I heard someone say, what I do is I always hire 2 VAs and ask them to do the same job and then cut one of them. I was like, man, that's kind of brutal, but maybe that's a best practice. I don't know. But how do you then bring that person in, and how do you hold them accountable? Like, how do you start the beginning, the first few days, maybe the first month? How do you then actually manage that person?
Good question. So you're a month in, you already have all your Loom videos of exactly how to do all the things that you want them to do. And I really I meet with I meet with my head team Monday mornings, and just, this is the way the week's going to go. I probably every day or every other day, I'm talking to Jess, either a phone call through Signal or texting back and forth through Signal. We happen to use Signal. Texting isn't going to be the whole Filipino number thing. And basically, so a couple of rules: do not give a brand new VA anything that can cost you a lot of money, right? So do not say, I want you to handle, let's just say, all my Airbnb holiday pricing. That would not be good. Do not have them list your hockey tickets and they list your Michigan football tickets by mistake. And you're going, no, 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 please. Michigan, Ohio State should not be priced at $50 a ticket. They're going to be gone. So basically always have a video, always have, or at least written instructions. And then, like I said, anything involving price changes or anything that can cost you money, say, as soon as this is done, I want to text, I want to double check it. And so, for example, I'm the guy that broke my rule that said, this will be simple. Just list my hockey tickets, which they don't know hockey. They don't know football. They're big on basketball. And Norman on my team is quite tall and actually plays really well. Basically, I'm like, let me see. And as soon as I saw it, I'm like, oh my gosh, listed the football tickets along with hockey tickets. This is horrible. So the other thing is a VA, the other stereotype of a VA is the VA shows up and your life is easier. That is not the case. Your life is not easier. Your life now goes to, I have to put in the training to make it really easy in about a month or 2 weeks. But you have to double check the work quite a bit because there's going to be small mistakes that get made at the beginning and you're going to fine tune it. And eventually it's going to run flawlessly, but you have to put in that effort up front. So I've seen VAs cost people money and I've seen people not put in the effort up front. The other thing that we do is if you don't have any VAs, you obviously are not a VA expert. So one of the things that the Rockstar VAs does is we have a performance maximization plan. And once a week, you meet with a VA that has 15 years experience, and they will walk through not only, how is the VA doing, what's going on, but also tell me about your business. Tell me about what you do in your daily life. One of the biggest success stories we have is a client ended up hiring a VA full-time, wasn't using them full-time and said, I can't even figure out, I can't use them full-time. I don't know what to do. Said, talk to Norman. He's going to start asking you these questions. And basically, when Norman got done asking questions, the person hired a second VA because that's how much work they had, but they're not the experts. So they don't know that. They can't be faulted for that. So you need to also get somebody helping pry the ideas out of your head of what people can do to actually assign it to the VA and feel comfortable and confident with it.
Dave, so I've heard different things out there floating around about you shouldn't hire a VA to do like your sales or just different aspects of the business. And I'm curious what your thoughts are on some of the different tasks or skills you should not try to use a VA for.
We placed an oncologist to help double check and read radio, X-ray things for cancer, right? I mean, I'm like outrageously confident in the VAs that we have. I'm not sure about the whole sales thing. I have Jess do the sales when people call in and I'm like, this is what a Rockstar VA looks like. You more than likely haven't seen somebody like this. Now, the biggest win we had is there's a developer friend of mine in Tampa and he was paying an architect $125 an hour. And we found him a licensed architect to work for roughly 90% off of what he was paying. So, I mean, this is where people's minds get blown of, you can get an architect, you can get a nurse, you can get a doctor, you can get an accountant, you can get an MBA. There's a guy I know that has 4 MBAs that do all his underwriting for apartments. He underwrites 200 apartment buildings a month. And these guys just grind it out. They all have to do 50 a month. And it's, whatever that is, 6 hours an apartment, very detailed. And then once they show him the best stuff, they go after it. So, I mean, this is next level stuff. This is not the stereotype. They'll double check your email and remind you to call your mom once a week or something like that.
But Dave, you talked about costs. Give us an idea of the range of what a VA could cost doing a variety of different tasks. Because I think people watching, listening, would want to know: what are we talking about here?
Right. So basically, for roughly minimum wage in the United States is what we're talking for. Manager person is going to be more, but a manager, and at least from our company, all the VAs get two shares of the best healthcare, private room. It isn't ward like some other places provide or semi-private. This is the best of the best. So they're getting something for themselves, another person. They're getting paid vacation. There's no FICA. There's no unemployment. They are they're going to be a 1099 employee for you, and we're going to be able to find them, keep them paid, keep them having their health care, help you with the performance maximization, and help bring in other ideas for how to use those VAs.
So when should someone decide when to get a VA, or even for how many? But when is a good time to get started? When you have what situation?
When you are planning on growing or want some of your time back. I mean, it's amazing when you're working, let's just say you're working 40 hours a week. I was working probably a little bit more than that. I think most people that end up getting a VA really wish they would have done it sooner. It's amazing what happens when you're working, let's just say 50 hours a week, you bring in the VA, you're now working 25. You have this extra time to just kind of get creative, go for a walk, enjoy your family, get some time back, and also have ideas percolate in your head that you weren't able to have before because you were busy logging into the electric company site to do your books and all these other tasks that aren't, that really aren't value added for you to be doing. So I think the other objection I hear that I really disagree with is I have some things for a VA to do, but I don't have enough for them to be full-time, or our company actually offers half-time VAs, which is fairly rare in the space. And basically, I like to break it down and say, well, how much is your time worth? If you're paying this person, let's just say $12 an hour, if your time's worth $50 an hour, if you keep them busy 2 hours a day at the beginning, you're breaking even. And eventually you're going to figure out 3, 4, 5, 6. So for example, when I employed Jess at the very beginning, I was working, I had her working probably 5, 6 hours at the most a day. And I was quite happy to have her sit still for a couple hours and then eventually things grew and I expanded and started the VA company, which was quite the story. I actually have lunch with a bunch of guys in Ann Arbor, and I was telling them how amazing Jess was. And they said, do you think she can find me one like that? And I said, I don't know. Let me ask her. So I asked Jess, and she goes, yeah, I could find somebody pretty good, somebody pretty amazing. So the first 3 virtual assistants that we find for people were 3 people that I have lunch with on a regular basis. And at the end, the conversation was always the same. Dave, what do we owe you? I said, oh, nothing. Don't worry about it. And finally, another guy goes, you do realize you have a virtual assistant placement company and you actually are providing a valuable service and you should charge for this. I'm like, really? I had no idea. So, yeah, so that's how we started.
Yeah,
Gave the first 3 away for free.
Nice. Well, you have a kind of a free bonus for our listeners here, and I'm going to read it, but I don't really know what it is. It's called the Inner Metric Advanced Insights Profile. Okay. What is that thing? Okay. Well, and we'll tell people how to get to in a second here. It's for business owners typically, but what is it used for? Why is this a good thing? And why is it typically cost money?
Right. So this, if you were to buy this test, it would be $295. We are going to offer it for the first 100 of your listeners for free. And the reason you want to take it is it combines 3 of the world's best profile tools. And what it's going to do is it's going to give you insight into yourself. And so, for example, you don't know whether or how much of a attention to detail person you actually are. If you are not an attention to detail person, let's say you would really want the VA to be more detail oriented. We also give this test to all the VAs to try to match them up with the clients as best we can. Now, if you are more of a detail oriented person, you are going to want somebody that is a bigger thinker and willing to help suggest things to you, kind of like Jess is for me, right? So Jess compliments me wonderfully, and we think a lot alike. I think that's the other thing to when you're interviewing somebody, whether you're doing it on your own or whether you're doing it with my company. For example, we will get you 5 resumes within a week of you signing up, and then you're interviewing those 5 people. A lot of people make the mistake of saying, this is the best resume, I'm hiring this person, and they don't talk. This is much more of a marriage than a business decision. If you get along really well and are in sync with somebody, it makes a world of difference. That is way more important than this resume reads a little better. All this stuff can be, for the most part, everything can be taught. There's certain level of skills on certain tools. I guess that's the other thing is you get into some of the real estate tools, and we're able to find people that are experts at that, or HubSpot, CRMs, stuff like that. But bottom line is the personality and you having chemistry is more important than the resume.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So that's going to be at themichaelblank.com/VA is where you can find this assessment tool. So the first 100 get it for free. After that's $295. So definitely check that out. And also check out the Rockstar VAs and the services that Dave's company provides. So Dave, thank you so much for being on the show today, man.
Thank you for having me.